You have exactly 3 seconds to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll appear in your dreams tonight. To ask for a donation for that cup of coffee, link below.
These are the people insurance companies don't want to see die, whose deaths are denied recognition by their homelands. Every land they've traversed is stained with the blood of. And we're talking about mercenary units, whether overt or they're always present on any fierce battlefield. But what? These warriors, who only live for money, possess such formidable fighting abilities. To find the answer, prepare yourselves thoroughly and join military knowledge on a visit to the operational base of 5 of the world's leading mercenary organizations. Music. Of course, before this journey begins, military knowledge has scheduled a visit with several American companies, referred as mercenary groups, asking them to send guides to show you around there. So, while their representatives haven't arrived yet, let's briefly discuss the concept of mercenaries according to the Geneva Convention. A person is only considered a mercenary when they meet 3 criteria. Firstly, they are not a regular member of the armed forces in the country where they are serving, who are only selected to participate in a special operation. Secondly, to participate for personal gain and are paid many times more than the regular army. Thirdly, and finally, citizens of countries directly involved in the conflict or not being in territory controlled by countries involved in that conflict. In 1989, the United Nations passed a resolution banning the use of mercenary calendars. However, only 30 countries signed it. Passed. The reason the remaining countries refused to sign is believed to be due to the significant benefits of using mercenaries in war. To avoid calling those fighting for them mercenaries, countries often use the concept of self-proclaimed military forces. International Corps, or Viet Nam, calls these people mercenaries, but this only originates from the opposing side. Therefore, military knowledge will apply the concept of mercenaries to all forces mentioned in this video, regardless of which side they are fighting on. Yes, they have arrived. These are the warriors run by the Corps. You will follow them to visit the combat positions of real mercenaries. Hurry up. They won't wait for us, except for the high-ranking officials of the organization. Many bosses like Jack, Ginny, and Pregrin are working in this office with all the modern equipment. This is the main workplace of those called water mercenaries, the main character in this video. It is known that the warriors here have no combat experience, recruited from former Russian prisoners of war and some foreign citizens. Music. The warriors Warner also said they are friendly, as long as you don't do anything that affects their combat operation. One of the most pointless things you can do right now is to extract information about water from these soldiers because their strict discipline doesn't allow them to reveal anything. Quiet statements belong only to those designated by high-ranking officials. So the most authentic information about this corporation can only come from Russia itself. Their opponents are on the other side of the battle lines. But even with the naked eye, we can still see that they are the richest mercenaries in the world, equipped with extremely modern weapons from infantry rifles, mortars, heavy artillery, and even fighter planes. However, like other groups called mercenaries, legally, this group seems to exist illegally as it is not registered in Russia or any other country. Music. As in Viet, our country also has extremely severe penalties for those who work as with military knowledge. Here's a riddle for you. Which of the 4 answers below is the Vietnamese law for the crime of working as a mercenary abroad? Answer A, death penalty. Imprisonment from 5 to 15 years. Life imprisonment. And answer D, warning. Self-criticism. You have seconds to think. Leave your answer in the comments below. The correct answer will be announced at the end of the video. Music. Opposing forces against the military bloc. Natogner is considered a victim of a series of international sanctions, according to accusations from Western authorities that this private military organization has blatantly violated human rights by not only causing looting in Ukraine but also in the Central African Republic and Syria. However, this doesn't seem to be a major issue for the organization, aside from its abundant financial resources due to continuously winning lucrative contracts in most of the hottest battlefields of the Natogner also has interest linked to the Russian military, according to Western intelligence. Natogner operates both openly within the ranks of the Russian military and, on behalf world's largest military force, carries out covert operations that the Russian government does not want or need to get involved in. Therefore, since first being exposed in Ukraine, according to Western intelligence, Natogner fighters have also been present on battlefields in the United States, the Central African Republic, Libya, and are actively involved in warfare. Just in the Syrian battlefield alone, since 2016, over 3,000 Warner soldiers participated in combat supporting the Syrian government army in various battles. Surprisingly, their losses were minimal, with only about 30 dead and over 100 wounded. However, the authenticity of the companies involved in supplying water in Syria is considered unclear. In contrast, the organization's presence was relatively clear as early 2014. After 250 sold, Warner unexpectedly appeared and successfully captured numerous Ukrainian military positions in Crimea before Russia annexed the peninsula. According to the SB intelligence agency, Warner supported the Logar militia in shooting down a Ukrainian Il-76 transport plane, killing people. They also participated with the Luhansk militia in attacking Ukrainian government forces in the Battle of Detaservo, causing Ukrainian casualties of 3,000. The situation only became more serious after Russia launched a special military operation in Ukraine. 2022, the Ukrainian government accused up to 40 mercenaries linked to the Walker group of being sent to the capital to assassinate President Volodymyr S. This also explains the curfew and the order to eliminate anyone suspected of being a potential threat to the government. It is known that in the early stages of the military operation in Ukraine, Moscow only used mercenaries to reinforce its frontline forces, but later their role became increasingly important in crucial battles, such as those around the cities of North Muni and Salada in eastern Ukraine. In the battle at the center of the town from the beginning of January 2023, despite the enemy's willingness to fight to the last man, the Ukrainian soldiers recklessly conducted a series of skirmishes, moving close to the enemy as a main frontline force. After dozens of days of arduous fighting against fierce enemy resistance, the transformation of the town of Sulia into a fiery cauldron of rubble and bombs has resulted in the capture of most of the area. Complete control of Sulia and its vast salt mines would hold immense symbolic value for the overall Russian military campaign, which reached January 2023, when Ukrainian defenders there were almost completely defeated. The Russian Ministry of Defense officially confirmed that the mercenary group had helped Russia gain control of this strategic town. Tomorrow I will sortie on a MiG-29, if you wish. We will meet in the sky. You will hold on to. If victory is not yet achieved, we will advance to the riverbank to dive. This was the challenge from the water mercenary group to President Daysky, amidst mercenary organizations, consecutive victories alongside Russian forces on the battlefield around the North Mud meatgrinder area, particularly in the deep offensive into the city. War correspondents also noted extremely brutal close-quarters combat with the defending forces, according to some analysts, along with the increasingly evident presence of naval forces and the growing combat capabilities of Russian soldiers. The Ukrainian Defense Forces, after a period of fierce resistance, have gradually succumbed and been forced to withdraw from key positions, creating a shift in favor of the Russian army. As of February 23, according to U.S. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, there were 9. During nearly a year of fighting in Ukraine. Despite much criticism of Russia for its use of the warrior ideology on the... Few know that. On the other side of the front lines, Ukrainians are also supported by numerous self-proclaimed military companies. Those fighting under these entities are also referred to by the Russian side as mercenaries. To get a more comprehensive view of the mercenary forces across the Ukrainian battlefield, let's look across the front lines to a camp of scrap metal. The reason military experts chose this as the second destination in this video is because of the armored fighters. Although it only appeared in the news around July 22, many people expected it to become a counterweight to the Water Mozart mercenary force that had been operating throughout the Ukrainian battlefield. Unlike the Russian mercenary force with a long history of operation, the Mozart was only founded in March. If, upon hearing this, military enthusiasts feel the name Water Mozart sounds familiar, then it's true. Both of these private military organizations are named after two famous European composers, Wilhelm Richard. Despite the fact that these two musicians have no involvement in any other wars, the Mao Zedong Group is structured as a limited liability company, registered in the United States, under the guise of a charity, to fund some military operations. Although established from the early days after Russia launched its special military campaign, the most notable activities of this group are focused on training civilians, the defensive forces, right in the midst of the Russian army's approach to the Ukrainian capital. After a while, seemed to have escaped the critical situation. Western weapons also began to be transferred to the Ukrainian battlefield. The Oz group participated in training the Ukrainian regular army, using new equipment, training snipers to use anti-tank missiles, and artillery. Besides that, they also helped Ukraine clear mines, provided humanitarian assistance, and first aid. Thanks to their efforts in improving the combat capabilities of the Ukrainian army, the Mozart soldiers were on the Wanger's target list. But it is unclear how the leaders of the organization managed their operations throughout their activities. The Mozart soldiers constantly complained about wages and a shortage of weapons. According to some Ukrainian soldiers, the Mozart soldiers used firepower too wastefully, while supplies on the battlefield were very limited, as seen in the battle at the north, where they were extremely unprofessional and repeatedly defeated throughout. The armored forces, after exhausting their last remaining funds, officially ceased all operations, despite Ukrainian defenders struggling against the brutal attacks of the Russian Navy. However, the number of private military units fighting on the Ukrainian side was not insignificant. Alongside the armored forces, the International Corps protecting Ukrainian territory also appeared in extremely high density on Ukrainian territory. For brevity, we will temporarily call them the Ukrainian Foreign Corps. This is third force we want to introduce to you. Established on February 27, 2022, just a few days after Russia launched its special operation, the Ukrainian Foreign Corps was formed at the call of President Moscow's relentless offensive. By March 9, 2012, the Foreign Army had recruited up to 1,000 people, more than 50 countries across 5 continents. This has become the most multinational mercenary organization on the list. Considering only the recruitment process from February to the end of March 2022, before the Ukrainian Foreign Corps announced the suspension of recruitment, said that this military organization seems to have the simplest recruitment process on the planet. To become a member of this, a foreign citizen only needs to prepare some personal documents and some papers proving previous military service experience, and a health certificate from their home country to any Ukrainian embassy. After the procedure is completed, here will approve and transfer the person to Ukraine based on the results of the 20-foot Ukrainian parliament. The government considers the Ukrainian Foreign Corps as a part of the national, and Ukraine will grant citizenship to these foreign soldiers if they wish. Therefore, most of the activities of the International Corps are under the command of the government, and the units within it are divided according to country and location. The forces appearing include Canadian brigades and Omani brigades, with a corps of former soldiers and deserters from Canada, as well as the UK. France, Belgium, and the Netherlands, known for their highly professional marksmen and discipline. In addition, there are also quite a few troops from former Soviet Union countries that are very friendly to Russia, such as Polya Regiment with soldiers from the Russian Volunteer Corps is a unit formed in August 22. Russian volunteer soldiers who fought for Ukraine, the Jokers Battalion, the Triangular Detachment SEF, and the Sijan Battalion have a large number of soldiers who are veterans of the Dead Army. There are also some units like the Gusha Corps and some groups of veterans of the Dead. Sri Lanka has the right to operate independently, alongside some foreign veterans and soldiers who have combat experience serving in the Ukrainian army since 2014. Her music. American, Canadian, and Belgian soldiers with combat experience in the Middle East and Afghanistan frequently complain about Ukraine is severely lacking in air support, while the enemy is extremely comfortable in this regard. Therefore, Russian airstrikes and cruise missile attacks on Ukrainian foreign military positions have become all too common. To conclude today's military knowledge journey, we would like to introduce you to an organization called the Forwardvation Group. Although not from Bin Duong, this organization also operates in an extremely mysterious and unique way to easily create a cover and operate more freely. They set up fashion stores and charitable organizations. Currently, we cannot know the exact number of members of this mercenary group, but it is highly likely that the organization only has around 1 soldiers, carefully selected from veterans with ranger characteristics. Not only do they possess impressive combat capabilities, but the mercenaries in the Forward Artillery Observation Group also surpass other groups in fighting spirit and brutality. Part of the explanation is that this organization usually only recruits those with nationalist ideologies. Therefore, they recruit not only white soldiers with racist ideologies but also African American veterans with xenophobic and anti-immigrant views, and even war criminal. To date, information about the battles in which this mercenary group participated is very scarce because most of them remained secret during the war in Ukraine. These soldiers are recorded as having fought in the ranks of the Azoks, carrying out a series of brutal attacks against pro-Russian forces in eastern Ukraine. According to some unverified sources, mercenaries under the Azoks battalion used ammunition coated with lard when fighting against Russian-backed Islamic groups. They were also responsible for a series of tortures and beatings of Russian prisoners and pro-Russian soldiers. Despite the objections of the Ukrainian government and the condemnations of Western countries. Indeed, despite many differences, they are similar to the Scottish Mercenary Army, a European springtime. During the Middle Ages, the use of fighters from illegal private military companies in battles like the one in Ukraine still carried many risks, from humanitarian disasters to infrastructure destruction. However, due to immediate benefits, the countries involved in the war in Ukraine continue to turn a blind eye, making this an irreplaceable choice, according to many. If the special operations continue, mercenary forces will continue to be present in greater numbers, drawing in other countries, and increasing the intensity of the conflict. According to the Russian defense minister, 1,000 foreign fighters are ready to fight alongside Russian forces in Ukraine, and small groups of Serbian citizens have been fighting in support of the two eastern republics of Ukraine since 2014. According to Western media, Iranian soldiers and personnel are in Ukraine to help the Russians operate Iranian-made drones. Even in Russian media mentioned 100,000 North Korean volunteers, just like tens of thousands of American citizens who may support the Frammer campaign. The appearance of mercenary units on the Ukrainian battlefield has clearly raised serious concerns about the burgeoning trend of internationalization of warfare in recent, despite governments declaring that they do not encourage their citizens to fight abroad. However, for many, joining mercenary organizations is the shortest path to acquiring foreign citizenship and earning huge sums of money in a short time. So, what other risks are involved in using mercenaries? Or are there other foreign military organizations present on the Ukrainian battlefield that we haven't mentioned? Please leave a comment below. As for the answer to today's question, it is imprisonment from 5 to 50. Music.